All right, welcome back to the Game Dev Breakdown podcast. My name is Todd Mitchell. Each week, I bring you tales from the game industry and talk about the business behind the games you love. Tonight, we're going to hear from my friend Paul Nicholas, who I met on Twitter shortly after he created one of the coolest retro development projects I have ever seen. You're going to hear about what that project is and what exactly possessed him to do it. Paul's a very funny guy and very nice guy, and we really appreciate his time, so I won't hold us up. Let's get straight into my talk with Paul. First, very quickly, I want to remind you about the primary sponsor for the podcast, and that is Amazon.com. If you start your next trip to Amazon over at CodeWrite Play by clicking on one of the banners on the top or the right side of the homepage, that's a free way for you to support the show. Your prices, your experience will not change in the slightest, and we will get a little thank you from Amazon for sending you over to them. So that means so much to us you'll never know. So again, that's Amazon.com through CodeWrite Play. All right, Paul Nicholas, how you doing, buddy?
I'm very good, sir. And yourself?
I'm doing just fine, thank you. Thanks for finding time in your schedule. We got a little time difference between us. Where are you located?
I'm in the south of England, so in the UK. Yep.
So you're home from work, relaxing for the evening.
That was the plan. No. Yes,
Yeah.
I am indeed. This is relaxing.
Before I came along and messed that up for you.
No. It's all good.
Good. Well, so tell me this. You and I became friends on Twitter, I believe, right after I found a Pico 8 project you had completed based on the Scum engine, the Maniac Mansion engine. Tell me what possessed you to do this, because it was one of the coolest things I've ever seen done with Pico 8.
It's a very good question, and I'm still wondering what possessed me to do it. Really, it's something that snowballs from when you start doing these little projects, so-called little projects with Pico 8, and it's one of these things where it's a great little. So if anyone doesn't know, Pico 8 is this fantasy console that's it never really existed in physical form. It's kind of like an emulator without having a real piece of hardware that it's emulating from.
Right.
But it's severely limited, and it's sort of based around sort of by its name, it's 8-bit consoles, although it does sort of borrow some things from 16-bit eras. So it's this beautiful blend of low-res sort of technology and sound and visuals, and it's supposed to focus the mind really, so that you know do small projects. And I've seen loads of other developers doing the same thing, but they start small, they do a small little project, some little game, maybe a platformer, and then after a while you start building up a bit more. I think, well, what else can I squeeze into this little bit? And the code can only be so big, and they fit on these small cartridges that end up getting exported as PNGs, which is so damn cute. And
yeah.
that was the bit that really sort of won me over to spend some time with this thing, because you can just share these images around, and it's got all the code now.
Right.
Yeah.
So your project specifically recreated sort of a Maniac Mansion style walk around this house, and I'm wondering, how close did you get to the actual code limitation on that?
Oh, I maxed it. I maxed it completely.
That's
yeah.
what I thought.
So I mean, I got kind of as close as I could. I think realistically get. And I sort of put big disclaimers, because you get people to go, oh, but it's not really Scum, and that was never going to be possible due to the limitations. But functionally, from an API point of view, I got there were some great resources on the internet from some ex-developers that were actually at LucasArts or Lucasfilm Games back then at the time, and they published sort of this information. So I had all that to go on. So from the commands that were available as you would actually build a Scum game back in the day, that's all in there. And to be honest, I kind of got a bit too carried away, because I was like, I want to get all the main features in there. I want to be able to walk around, to be able to interact with objects, other characters, do dialogues back and forth, and obviously cutscenes. That was a huge thing for me. I wanted to be able to have that in there, because I think those sort of cutscenes and the way that everything's very cinematic was what sort of really drew me into the Scum, kick on of Scum games, for the Lucasfilm games in the early days. But I got so carried away that it was like, okay, I've taken up about 80% of the available code space, if you like, just with the engine. So I ended up being very torn at the end because I was like, I can't really sacrifice anything here without really throwing away, felt like cutting off a leg or something if I get rid of this bit. So I. In that demo that I ended up putting up there, and obviously there's a heck of a lot of homages to Ron Gilbert's, and the others, Maniac Mansion, from style, if not just from in content as well. I only ended up having enough room for about 12, if that, rooms before that's it. There's no more room on this cartridge.
Right, and that's sort of what strikes you. The first time I played Maniac Mansion, I was already a grown up. It didn't come across my console as a child, but
Mm-hmm.
when I did it as an adult, I thought, wow, this is sort of the height of retro gaming, because you play this and it's sort of these quaint graphics, but it's just impressive for the time. But as you dig further and further into it, you go, oh my God, this just goes inward forever. You can do so much stuff, and the fact that you created such a large portion of that in the Pico 8 system. That's why I was kind of saying on Twitter, like, you guys don't understand. You have to look at this thing. It just he's done so much of this so well.
Oh, thank you. No, that's very kind. I tried, and it's as you say, and I have to confess, and it's one of the things I really must rectify as soon as possible. I haven't completed Maniac Mansion myself. As you say, it goes on and on and on, and that's not a bad thing. It's just It's amazing how much the guy, particularly Ron and the rest of the developers, managed to squeeze out of originally the Commodore 64. How on earth they managed to fit all that into the memory and the processing power that they had available at the time is ridiculous. So yeah, I tried to pick key sort of scenes so that there was shake it up a bit, and then just link all the rooms together, and obviously throw in a tentacle here and there just to get some familiar characters in there, and just hope that nobody sues me. And so far, Ron's been pretty good. He's seen it, and he's said nice things about it, which is quite good. And I can't ask for more than that.
That's awesome, because he's very active on Twitter, of course, and I enjoy following him and seeing how he sort of interprets modern game industry stuff. And I can only imagine how much fun it would be to sort of interact with him now and sort of express that awe that we have for him, as such a legend in the game industry.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I say it just, I mean, you saying that, this blows me away. It absolutely blows me away, what they managed to achieve back in the day. And I'm really annoyed because I did have a Commodore 64 growing up as a kid. And for some reason, with all of those copied tapes that I had of games that, to be honest, most of them came with the console or the computer. I never had Maniac Mansion, and it completely passed me by. So it likewise, you said you didn't touch that game until it came to it. I didn't play it until much after the classics like Secret Monkey Island and the like. So it was one that I returned to later in the day as well.
Right, yeah, my dad had a Commodore 64. I wasn't really allowed to get near it. I was still pretty young at that time, But we had like an Apple IIc or IIe. It was one of those. And the closest I came to any of this stuff was we had some of the books where you could punch in the code and play, like Ice Cave or whatever it was.
Yep.
But that's just so cool. Tell me, how long had you been playing with Pico 8 before you tackled something of that scale?
Wow. Yeah, that's a good question. I didn't start playing with Pico 8 right when it got created. I picked it up from. So I think the short answer to your question is probably about a year, something like that, on and off. But I think when I first saw it and fell in love with this whole sort of fancy console idea, I played the heck out of it, and was it was the first time I'd seen Lua, the scripting language.
Right.
That was cool to me. I'm a C# .NET developer by day, so it was a slight switch, but obviously syntactically there's not a great deal of difference there, and it's great for beginners because it's very similar to BASIC in a way. So after doing a few, I was going to say simple ones, but I think the first thing I ever did and pushed up was a clone of the Stacker arcade machine. I don't know if you guys ever play that. Yeah. So it was one of those that I can't remember. I thought it'd be nice to do a little arcade machine, and I thought, well, what arcade machine have I invested and wasted loads of time on? And it's like that one. That one took. enough, and I never got anything decent out of it. So I thought,
Right.
well, that's probably good. How hard can that be? But again, like all projects, particularly small game dev projects, everyone always tells you, so no, whatever you're thinking of doing, halve it and halve it again. Just doing something simple like a little arcade machine can actually grow and grow if you're not careful. So that I ended up polishing that thing way too much, and then on the next few, I think I did much smaller projects. But to be fair, one of the things that probably helped the most, and again another reason, I'm really not affiliated with Pico 8, but I seem to be just like giving reasons that you need to go out and buy it.
Yeah.
Is that, have you heard of tweet jams? Have you seen these tweet carts that have been going around at all?
Oh, not yet. No.
Okay, so the idea of that, I think it was, I say Adam Atomic, from Cannibal. I've probably said his name wrong there, but he used to create a tweet, and all the code is in the tweet, and you can just copy and paste that into Pico 8, and that is it. So someone will share up an animated GIF because it can export out to that. So it's a good way of learning to use a few of the commands, but without going too crazy into depth and scope of a project. So I think doing quite a lot of these little tweet jams was very useful to sort of get used to the language and build up the confidence of making things move and making things pretty. Just slowly building up the scale. And I've got a friend of work and some other people that are sort of starting to play with this stuff. And I'm trying to help them to learn from my mistakes and go, no, really start small, do something small, and then slowly build up.
I think that's exactly right, because what you said about having what you wanted to do and then have it again, when you start getting into things like game jams and stuff, you hear a lot of that same thing, and they try to warn every newcomer, and probably no matter how many warnings you get, your first game jam, you're going to go way too aggressive.
Yep.
I certainly did, probably my whole first year, but it's just a fascinating thing, because this is yet another thing, and this being Pico 8, this is yet another way to sort of put those restrictions on yourself to force you to get into that mindset. Yeah. And once you're in that mindset, like you said, you start to build something and you go, okay, I do have some room now that we've got, something functional, something that works. We're past proof of concept. Let's add a little bit here and a little bit there. And when time's up, now you're done and you're safe and everything's nice. But that's got to be one of the most difficult lessons to learn on your way to becoming, good at this.
It definitely is, and it's I think it's the and it's kind of a double-edged sword, because you start enjoying what you're doing, and because you can get quick results very quickly, and like you say, prototype something, and then you can just build on the prototype, making it functional. You don't want to ruin that enthusiasm or restrict it, but you do, like you say, have to rein it in and just do a bit of a sanity check every now and then, and just see how close am I to the high water mark here, and it's easy to forget to do that.
Yeah, and it translates well, because when you decide, okay, now I'd like to make my own proper game, if you're a newer person or you're working with a newer person, as their brain starts to spin in front of you and you see them sort of realize how much depth there can be to it, that's when you sort of start to lose people, I think.
Yeah.
You see their eyes glaze over and they get nervous and I don't know if I'm cut out for this. And really, this is the best way to build up those muscles to get you to the finish line, I think.
It is a very good introduction, and for someone like me, I can dabble a bit with pixel art, but really I know my limits, and having something that's limited to 128 by 128 pixels it kind of feels like you and with 16 colors, that you're on a slightly level playing field with say great artists, because it's whereas, doing something with much higher resolution, you just like, I don't know where to begin. Whereas you think if you're trying to draw a person with like 5 pixels by 10, you think there's only so many combinations that you could do here. And you just kind of feel like you've got more of a chance to try and compete with some of those guys. You don't really, but it just feels like
I agree. It's like if you had an architect with you, but you're both playing with Legos.
Exactly. That's a much better analogy. I should have thought of that.
You feel like you can at least sort of hold your own, even if they're still going to come out with a much better final result.
Indeed.
I enjoy Pico 8 because I have worked in Lua before, And I think as we've discussed before, like my only actual commercial product I did in Lua almost completely throughout. I ended up having to port that to iOS and Android at the end, but using a very basic framework, I coded my whole game using Lua, and really it wasn't pixel art, but it was more like I used what is the vector drawing app? It escapes me right now, but Inkscape.
Inkscape, thank you. Yes, it's the open source one. Yeah.
What I found was that once I had lines that I could just push and pull till they were correct, I had a much better chance, because I'm not a native artist either. I had a much better chance of coming up with a decent product if I had just unlimited time to push and pull and scale and try different things. If you give me a pencil and a piece of paper, you can probably just throw both of those things away,
Yeah. And like I say, it's with all of this, it's having constraints and having limits or whatever, it just focuses the mind or focuses your creativity. And so that if you've got the world's the limit, and then you get nothing done, or it's very hard to just to keep on track. And whether it's through this console or whether it's through doing something else, that seems like, and I've noticed that with movies as well. I'm a big movie fan as well. So any directors that have been if they've had a real tight budget, or they had to do it in a short amount of time or something, it just seems to breed creativity, and they just seem to produce something that's a bit, I don't know. If they've got an unlimited budget, then that's when things generally go wrong. Unless you're James Cameron, in which case he seems to knock out blockbusters. But
always lands on his feet, right?
Yeah.
In a lot of disciplines, I think the scariest thing you could have is a blank canvas and just no rules, no guidelines, no anything. That's where writer's block comes from, and I guess you could say to some extent we have that as coders also. We have sort of a coder's block.
Yeah, no, definitely, it's a fear.
So, as for game development in general, I mean, I know you're normally just sort of a non-gaming commercial programmer, which is certainly how I got started as well. How long have you been sort of into hobby game development?
That's a good question. It's you're hitting me with all the good ones.
Yeah, you never think of it till you're in.
I mean, I would say it's probably been in the last couple of years, if that really. It's on and off. It's always been something. I mean, certainly the first thing I wanted to do when I was a kid, I was just as soon as I realized that computers could be programmed at 5 or 6 or something, I was like, this is what I want to do. And like you said, you had the magazines where you had the source code for some naughty little adventure game, and you'd spend hours typing it all in, and I was hooked from there. So I think I originally thought from then on that, this will be what I'll do. But it's never been easy to get into that kind of industry. So I think I took the perhaps safer path, I guess, and just went straight into, like I say, more commercial application development. So I've dabbled here and there throughout. The last 30 odd years, I guess. But yeah, it's only been the last sort of couple of years that I thought with these, particularly with these jams, I think, as you say, they're a real convenient sort of, perfectly sort of small bite of a window that you can dedicate some time to, and again, it not be such a mammoth project that you end up throwing it away, or if you do end up throwing it away, you've only invested maybe a couple of days or a week, and it doesn't feel so painful.
Yeah.
So that's pretty recent, I'd say, but as I said to you, sort of when you kindly invited me to come on your show, I thought, well, unlike a lot of other people that trying to make their day to day through this, it's I wouldn't class myself in anywhere near that. I just like playing around with it and trying to keep up.
Absolutely. And tell me if you find this is true as well, but someone was asking me just the other day, if you were so interested in this, why did you go into commercial software development instead of just going straight into games? And my short response was are you kidding? Of course I would have liked to go directly into games, especially when I was college age, But what people don't always realize is that game development, as big as the industry is, it is very tightly focused in very certain geographic areas. We have 2 or 3 of them here in the U.S. I don't know how close you are to companies like Rare, or I think Ubisoft is out your way somewhere. Possibly?
Yeah, and you've got Hello Games and a few others that are about sort of an hour's drive up the road.
So really, it's on the coasts around here. Canada also has some booming game businesses. I think Ubisoft there as well. But so for a lot of us, I think we get out of school, we go like, yeah, I'm interested in technology and computers, and a lot of it is based on video games. But we do what we need to do to get by, and we're lucky that it's a field that will usually take pretty good care of you. If you're capable, and then we have cool stuff like game jams, and I think that's why the indie scene thrives the way it does, because a lot of us just don't have opportunities to take it full time.
Yeah, absolutely, and I've not been monitoring it as closely as probably someone like yourself has been monitoring it throughout the years, but it does seem like I want to say it's kind of gone in waves. So like back when I was growing up, and perhaps yourself as well, you definitely had bedroom coders where you really could have a game that you built in your bedroom as one or two-man band, and it just go massive. It would be bought by a publisher or whatever, and just go, yeah, here's a buckload of money. And then that all just went away for a really long time, and it's only sort of since the smartphones sort of came around again that it was like, okay, this is now seemingly possible again. You don't always have to have like a massive, 100-man team creating the next AAA title. I think, like I say, when it came to around college time, it seemed like unless you were gonna prepared to really go all out, and I did have some friends in college that did take that route, and I wish them all the best, and I think they did quite well, but I just probably didn't have the guts to do it. So it's nice that it's all kind of come around again, and every now and then it does so. And like I say, the indie scene and dev scene seems to be just a wonderful community. Everyone just seems to have the utmost respect for each other, and looks out, and sort of everyone's willing to share each other's work. And certainly from my point of view, I find it very helpful. Just surrounding and seeing. There's a mixture of being like slightly shattered, like seeing some amazing work and just going, oh my God, I can't do anything like that. But also it does challenge yourself. It does force you to just try to like push yourself a bit more. But so it does seem like it's still possible to get, if you're lucky and your thing goes viral, then I guess that's all it takes nowadays with the internet. But it does seem to be down to a lot of luck.
Yeah, very much so. And you bring up an interesting point. I think to some extent, independent developers, we always seem to cycle around and find a way to make ourselves competitive. Like you said, the mobile thing's a great point, because now we've got all these smartphones. There's room for anybody to create something in a fairly short amount of time. I did my game completely alone, except for a couple of voiceovers, and that was a 6-month project, and I did it while I was, helping the family, other ways, doing other work, things like that. And it's funny, when I was doing a little bit more writing for different game sites, I talked to a guy who learned assembly language like way back when so he could make his own NES games. And he said the exact same thing. He said, it's the game industry is taking off. However, if you get on the right platform, you can make a competitive game by yourself. And I feel like we're going to keep finding ways to do that, which is really cool if you think about it.
Yeah, I don't envy that guy for sure.
No, me neither.
Assembly. I dabbled, and it scared the hell out of me. But yeah, like you say, if you're determined enough and you're smart enough to do it, then world's your oyster. You will give yourself a competitive edge, no doubt about it.
I've flipped through an assembly book, and I like to think of myself as like just above average intelligence, like just above, but that leaves way too much room to tackle assembly. Like I don't think I could. I don't think I'd be happy if I devoted myself to that.
It does. It blows my mind. And of the games that I tend to have a lot of appreciation for and seem to return to play more are the ones that use procedural content or are procedurally generated. And to know that sort of back in the 80s, one of my favorite games is River Raid, and that's sort of back in 82. And the fact that a game on the Atari 2600 had procedurally level generation it just baffles me. And again, I'm guessing assembly, but it's just amazing. And so we've never had it so good, and we really shouldn't complain with the amount of layers of libraries on top of libraries on top of libraries that we're standing on the shoulders of giants. And
exactly.
And so we're the ones that are guilty, and we're wondering why is Windows taking up several hundred gigs of hard drive, and it's because we've all got a little bit lazy in a way, and maybe we should start learning assembly or not.
Go back to basics, right?
Yeah, exactly. Let's tear out all those layers and do things the way we should do it.
Now, do you find that when it comes to modern games and modern consoles and stuff, do you find that you enjoy the same things you can tell took some really clever programming, procedural content, things like that? And I hate to draw on No Man's Sky, that might not be the best example, but do you find you appreciate games that have sort of clever mechanics like that now?
Absolutely. It was the first thing that was jumping my mind ready to say as soon as you were asking that. So you baited me. Yeah, it's stuff like that particularly. I think it'll always impress me, and I guess there may be two schools of thought. You might get some people that go, "Oh, well, that's lazy. You're just creating a load of rules and then just letting the game run off with it." I'm like, but it creates a lot more playability because then you've got sort of endless gaming. But yeah, No Man's Sky. When I started seeing what Sean Murray was starting to push out with some of the early demos they did, it was E3 the first one. I can't recall, but when they started showing it, and we were like, wow. And I guess there's some arguments on either side of whether or not it's been fully delivered, but yeah, you've got to tip your hat at that team of just what they've managed to achieve so far, and regardless of whether or not it's what people were expecting. And likewise, back in the day, my favorite game on the Amiga was Frontier Elite 2, and I never really played the original, unfortunately, too much. And whenever I did have a chance, I was always just like crashing into wireframe stations in space. But back then, again, creating a galaxy within a tiny old 8-bit computer is crazy. So yes, procedurally generated ones that come out now will definitely pique my interest. But really, it's all been down to cinematics. And that started with the old games, and hence the Scum type games, because I felt that they were like interactive movies. And most recently, and still my favorite game, if I had to pick one of all time, is The Last of Us, and other games like that that are massively cinematic and just make you feel like you're playing in the movie.
Sure.
They're the ones that would really grab my interest. Anything that's got really detailed cutscenes, that again make you feel like you're part of the movie. I'd love to do something like that one day, and yeah, Pico 8 is probably not a platform for that. I think I've probably milked that with some kind of cinematics. But again, that takes a lot of talent for art design or motion capture or something. And I'll probably leave that to the professionals and just enjoy playing them.
Right. It's such a funny thing because I feel like game development, it's a journey that happens in stages. You do very small stuff. I don't know how many of us didn't start with some kind of text-based game, those of us who played them and enjoyed them back in the day, when we decided to tackle C++ for the first time or something like that. It was very natural to go, I could make my own text game with this, And
Yep.
Since that time, I've actually created a little bit of an engine for text games using like HTML and the Bootstrap Twitter framework, which people have enjoyed thumbing through. I've actually got that up on GitHub now. But I think then you sort of go, okay, now it's time to tackle a platformer. Then you go, if you get far enough, you go, oh, maybe I could do something in 3D. And I first started looking at Blender when I was still in high school. I was probably in the first half of high school, putting me at, 13, 14 years old and going, I have everything here that I need. I could make, real games. And it's exciting, and learning Blender is like, it's right up there with assembly, probably.
But like I say, that almost ends up being very frustrating, doesn't it? Because you're like, especially when you're working with the tools that like the people that have created some games you admire, and you've got it all right in front of you, you're like, do something.
Yeah.
It's like you just want to, click your fingers and then just make it all come together. But then you realize that I've actually got to do a lot of work, and that's where it will be a test of your enthusiasm, I suppose.
Exactly. But I'm with you. I really enjoy the sort of cinematic experience. Very heavily story-driven stuff is always very cool to me, and I feel like I sort of fall into a little bit of a trap where I do enjoy playing games with my friends, and as we get older, we get slightly limited time to devote to games entirely, and they want to play Overwatch and Halo, and I'm a big racing fan too. I like to follow up, see what the Dirt series is doing and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And that doesn't always leave a lot of time to check out what came out from Telltale, even though that stuff is awesome. It's a lot of fun to play.
And is equally cinematic at times, yeah.
Right. So I'm kind of with you. It's like it'd be great if there were a sort of a more approachable way to create that kind of experience as a game developer. Yeah, maybe VR will lead to some stuff, but it's a lot of the same technology to build that stuff. So
Yeah, I've had some thoughts over the years of just like, oh, wouldn't it be great to have a way to create, like, say, something it's already got all the framework in it. Maybe it's got some pre-stored motion capture for people walking and performing certain actions, and then all you got to do is just, like, we're going back to the Lego blocks example, and just build things up in the right order, and ta-da, you've got a stage, you've got a background, and then everything's together, and then you've just got to make them all interact. And
right.
But again, yeah, that's probably going to take a lot of investment, and it was something I always ended up shying away from.
But to tell you the truth, when I look at a lot of the stuff people have made with Garry's Mod, I think maybe we weren't meant to have this ability.
Well, I think you've just put the nail on the head. That is it, isn't it? Garry's Mod was built just for people to do that. And oh gosh, what's his name? So the Freeman's Mind is Ross. I can't remember his name. I don't know if you've seen that YouTube series.
I don't recall.
And basically, pardon?
I don't recall.
Okay, so there's this guy, and it's annoying me now that I can't remember his name, but he used the Source engine and version of the Half-Life 2 content, and just made silly videos. Again, I think it's just perhaps a slight precursor to Garry's Mod, or maybe around the same time, and just made stupid little comedic shorts. And they're absolutely hilarious. And they're some of the funniest videos I've ever seen. I have to tweet a link, so I forget what it's called now. But yeah, the engine's already there. You've got all the assets that you need, and it's got a bunch of pre-configured movements and such. And then all you need is just to have either a wacky sense of humor or to do something more dramatic and serious. And yeah, I keep forgetting that people have already done this. Put all the building blocks there for us, and we just need to figure out how to assemble them.
Exactly. I find myself occasionally searching to see if maybe Telltale has put out any of their tools, and I think, like, why would they ever do that? That's stupid. Like, just because I want them to, But,
yeah, they probably did themselves out of a bit of money, I suppose, if they did.
Yeah, they've sort of got a pretty specific product, and I guess I can't really expect them to go, here you go, everybody, this is how we make it,
It would be nice.
It would be nice. Maybe one day, but well, tell me what you're playing at the moment.
Well, this is a good point. What am I playing at the moment? I'm in between games, so I have to admit I'm not a massive gamer. I just if a game comes along that I really like, then I'll play that. I most recently finished Until Dawn. I was quite late to that one, probably helped by the fact that it came up on the PlayStation monthly free games. Yeah. But as soon as when it came out, I'd seen from the trailers for it that looked, again, cinematic and very impressive. Playing it was a completely massive. I totally underexpected. How impressive that game was. Have you played it?
I have not.
Okay, well, that was lucky. Well, I wouldn't spoil anything anyway, just in case anyone's listening. But yeah, I highly recommend it. I'm not usually massively into big jump scare games or anything like that, and I thought perhaps it was going to be a bit cheesy because you had a sort of famous actress cast in it. But the game that they managed to put together in that was just every generation, or every couple of years, when we're talking about cinematic games, they notch up the detail, they notch up the realism, and I guess a bit like LA Noire and things like that, when they had the looking into the faces to detect whether somebody's lying, they managed to get those details just right. Right. Everything just seems to be amped up in this one, and there's probably way more realistic games out there, but yeah, no, I was really impressed with that. You just it's like the sort of typical sort of cheesy slasher films. They're all sort of stuck in a scary cabin in the woods, in the snow in this case. And but yeah, cinematically, and it just really amped up quite a lot of fear, I thought. And yeah, that was really impressive. So at the moment, I'm just sort of waiting to see what else comes up in the monthly games, or what else comes out. I still keep going back to No Man's Sky. Every time there's an update, I'll sort of like check out what else is new. I've not ever reach the center of the universe. I haven't got a clue how long it would take to do it. So
Right.
I'll keep giving that a go. And then, yeah, just waiting to see eventually whatever comes out of and whenever the Last of Us Part 2 or 2 comes out. And most recently, I guess the other thing that I played and completed, tying it back to Scum, was Thimbleweed Park, which I was so impressed with. I'm obviously biased, being a fan of the developers anyway, but that was really good and very entertaining because it's sort of pulling in a lot of other influences that I like Twin Peaks and X-Files. All in this just wacky humor, but again with a sort of 16-bit pixel art style.
And it's so great to see some of that brought into the modern day, so they can incorporate, like you say, some of the things we like now and the pop culture.
Mm-hmm.
It's just such a cool thing, and I'm so glad some of these guys are still active. Who was I just talking about? I mentioned Sid Meier the other day, and
Okay.
it's just some of these guys who have just sort of hung around and just been mainstays in the industry, and it's just so awesome to see. Hear their thoughts on Twitter and see what they're actually putting out. It's just phenomenal.
Everything seems to be coming around full circles again. It's like, through waves of, fashion and stuff. And like you say, yeah, all these greats and legends that I remember growing up, like the Oliver twins with the Dizzy series. They've had the Kickstarter recently, or at least they're working on the next sort of Dizzy game. And that was something that came out on the Speccy and the C64. A lot of these, like I say, legendary developers seem to all just had a bit of a resurgence. I think, I don't know how long it'll last, but we seem to be in a bit of a retro revival, and there seems to be a lot of sort of love coming back around for these sort of ones. And I think they're smart. All these people that were big back in the day are realizing that, and rightly taking advantage of sort of like giving a chance to breathe some sort of new life in their old games. I think Thalamus was another UK sort of game developer back in the day. They've recently just announced that they're kicking up the old team and are re-releasing some either sort of renewed or HD versions of games. And I think this whole sort of remastering and HD versions are giving everyone an opportunity to revisit old classics.
I love that, because if you had told me when I was 12 years old, you are going to grow up, but you will still be playing Sonic, and you'll be drawing
another good example, yeah.
Right, you'll be drawing 8-bit characters on your computer screen. Like I would have been on board. I would have been much more enthusiastic.
I just hope it's not something that's. I don't think it can be a flash in the pan, and that maybe everyone will get sick of blocky graphics for a while, and they go like, yeah, I want realism, and then this will fade away for a bit, but I think it will come back again.
Yeah, I'll see a comment section about a new pixel art game or a remake, and somebody will go, I don't. One person for every 50 people will go, I do not understand why people are drawn to games with these graphics, and then like 100 people will threaten that guy.
Yeah, I would imagine there's a bit of we'd say Marmite sort of thing, whether you either love it or you hate it, but yeah. It seems to get more love than hate, which I'm very grateful for, because I don't know whether it's a nostalgic thing or what, but yeah, retro games or games back then have just always been very appealing, and I always seem to just go back to them, even if it's just to play them for just like a couple of hours on an emulator or something. A real console if you can get it, but yeah, it's just, I don't know, something comforting about going back and playing those games.
Absolutely. Well, I told you I'd keep it brief, and 40 short minutes later,
wow,
here we are. That time really flew by. But tell us real quick where people can follow you online, or websites, Twitter, anything you want to give.
Oh wow, cool, the plug. Yeah, to be honest, I guess Twitter is probably the main thing that I tend to push stuff up on. So that's at Liquid Dream. So it's Liquid and REAM at the end. And I do have a website that's liquiddream.co.uk. Hasn't been getting much of the love lately, but it's due a refresh, so I'll probably push some stuff up there soon.
Perfect. Well, we will follow you there, and we'll do this again. This was great.
Oh, super. Thanks very much, Todd. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. All right, there you have it. Huge thanks to my friend Paul Nicholas for taking time with us and for the lively discussion about video games, the game industry, you name it. If you are on Twitter, follow Paul at Liquid Dream with 1D. He's a great person to interact with and a very funny guy also. As for the show, we love the downloads and the subscriptions and the interactions on social media. It gets better every week, and we love that about you guys. So stick around, tell a friend. I think we're going to hear from our friend John Schreiber again next week, and we've got some fun stuff in store for the coming weeks, so you don't want to miss that. So, for my friend Paul Nicholas and for Code Right Play, I'm Todd Mitchell. You guys keep playing. We will talk to you next week.